They used to read you like an open book, flipping your emotions like pages, assuming they knew every thought that lived behind your eyes. But that version of you, the transparent, trusting, giving one, died the day you realized not everyone deserved access to your inner world. Now, you're unreadable, unreachable. A locked vault they no longer have the key to. Your silence became something they fear because they don't know what it carries. Are you planning? Are you healing? Are you thriving? They don't know, and that's exactly what drives them insane. The mystery surrounding you now is intoxicating and terrifying at the same time. They crave the version of you who overshared, who explained every emotion. But that version no longer exists. Once upon a time, you gave people the blueprint to your soul. Now you give them nothing but the surface, and even that feels foreign to them. You learned that privacy isn't a wall, it's a weapon. And every piece of information you keep to yourself becomes another cut they feel but can't trace back to you. They stalk your silence like it's a crime scene. They analyze every move you make, every absence, every shift in behavior. But the beauty is they still find nothing. Because you've mastered the art of keeping your life in shadows while making your presence felt everywhere. You are seen but not understood. Your energy has become unpredictable, not chaotic, controlled. You don't post much, you don't explain much, you don't react much. But everything you do now has weight. They can't guess your next move, can't predict your intentions, can't read your heart. You've become a puzzle with missing pieces, a story with hidden chapters. People who once took advantage of your transparency now choke on the mystery you've become. They can't stand that they no longer know who you talk to, what you feel, what you plan, or where your life is heading. Your distance didn't just confuse them, it humbled them. They want the inside scoop, the details, the updates. The version of you who used to vent, share hopes, share dreams, share fears. But now you move like a ghost here, then gone. Present, then silent. Your aura carries secrets they're dying to decode, but you've stopped offering answers. You let their curiosity starve. Your silence makes them imagine everything you aren't saying. And imagination is always crueler than truth. They picture you happier without them, stronger without their chaos, flourishing in ways you never did when they had access to you. And that's what keeps them awake. They don't know who you trust now, who you confide in, who you love, what you're building, or what revenge you're cooking in silence. Their biggest punishment is realizing the version of you they rejected is the version they'll never meet again. Your evolution is a locked door. You walk differently now, not arrogantly, but with the confidence of someone who has survived betrayal and learned the value of secrecy. The glow on you now isn't cheap, it's earned. And they want to know how you did it, what changed, what made you so powerful. But you owe them nothing. You don't announce your plans, you execute them. You don't post your moves, you reveal outcomes. You don't explain yourself, you let your results speak. They can't tell if you're plotting greatness, revenge, or peace, and that uncertainty is delicious. Your mystery bothers them because they grew used to the version of you who over-explained everything. Now you barely give a sentence, barely give a clue. You realize that people only want to know you so they can predict or control you. That's why you became unpredictable. They want to know if you still care, if you still feel pain, if you still think about them. But your silence says nothing. And silence is scarier than anger. Silence leaves them guessing. Silence lets them drown in their assumptions. You show up polished, calm, unbothered, and that alone shakes their entire foundation. They don't know what lies beneath that calm. They wonder if you're healed or hiding, thriving or plotting. But either way, they can't read you, and not knowing is their torment. Your presence now has layers: cold, warm, charming, distant, all depending on who's standing in front of you. You learn that not everyone earns the same version of you. Some get your kindness, some get your indifference, some get nothing. That unpredictability is your armor. People whisper, speculate, invent stories about your silence because you don't give them one to follow. You've become a myth in their mind, a person they thought they knew but realized they never truly did. And the less you say, the more they obsess. You realize that mystery makes power. The less they know, the more they want. The more they want, the less they admit. They crave the old access, the old transparency, the old softness, but you leveled up into someone they can no longer decipher. Your absence of vulnerability isn't coldness, it's protection. You learned your heart wasn't meant to be a public place. Now your emotions live in a locked room with no windows, and you decide who enters. Spoiler, not them. Even when you speak now, you reveal nothing real. You talk in layers, in riddles, in half-truths, in beautiful surface-level sentences that keep your soul hidden. You learned the art of being present without being open. They hate that you're no longer predictable. They hate that they don't know what you want, or who you've become. They hate that you look unbothered while they're busy obsessing. Your aura went from relatable to untouchable, and that stings. They scroll through your life trying to find a crack, a hint, a clue. But all they find is confidence wrapped in silence, growth wrapped in privacy, power wrapped in mystery. You built a new version of yourself they can't access, can't control, and can't manipulate. Your mystery didn't just make them curious, it made them regretful. Because now they realize they lost the last version of you who was easy to love. And the version standing before them now? This one loves quietly, leaves quietly, and rises loudly. They finally understand the truth. You didn't become mysterious to impress the world. You became mysterious to protect your peace. And nothing terrifies them more than the fact that they can't figure out who you are anymore, because the person you've become is far above their reach. Your silence has turned into a mirror that forces them to face their own insecurities. Every time they try to analyze you, all they see is their own fear staring back. Because now they're not just wondering what you're hiding, they're wondering what you're capable of. And that uncertainty twists their stomach more than any truth ever could. They replay every conversation, every moment, trying to figure out where they lost the map to your mind. But the reality is simple. You rewrote the entire blueprint the moment you left. They're searching for the old route to someone who no longer exists. That's why every attempt to understand you ends in frustration. They're studying a ghost. Your calmness is what really destroys them. You don't rage, you don't reveal, you don't plead. You're composed in ways they never expected. And when someone can't read your emotions, they assume the worst, that you've healed without them, grown without them, and risen far beyond their grasp. You learn that mystery isn't about being distant, it's about being selective. Not everyone deserves all of you. Some people only get the outline, never the depth. Some get the smile, not the truth. Some get the presence, not the heart. This selective access burns them because they used to get everything for free. Now every move you make feels strategic to them, even when it's not. You breathe differently, and they dissect it. You post one thing, and they dig for meaning. You disappear for a day, and they imagine entire worlds. Your lack of transparency forces their imagination to work overtime, and imagination is their biggest enemy. They never expected you to become someone they couldn't read. They underestimated your evolution. They thought you'd always be predictable, emotional, expressive. Instead, you became a walking enigma, quiet strength, wrapped in dangerous confidence. And now they're stuck trying to decode a language they no longer speak. Part of them hates your mystery, but another part is addicted to it. You became rare. You became unpredictable. You became interesting in a way that threatens them. Because people fear what they can't define, and you've become undefinable. They can't place you in a category anymore. You're not the angel, not the victim, not the soft one. You're something else entirely. What frustrates them most is that your silence didn't come from weakness, it came from wisdom. You learned that speaking gives people weapons. Now you hand out nothing. Every detail you keep to yourself is a shield. Every secret you guard is armor. You don't just protect your peace, you protect your power. They whisper about you now, not with confidence but with caution. They talk like someone who isn't sure if you hear them, isn't sure if you know more than you show. And the truth is, you do. Your intuition sharpened, your instincts evolved. You see everything but reveal nothing. That imbalance terrifies them. They try to provoke you sometimes just to see if the old version of you still exists. But you don't react. You don't break character. You stay calm, collected, unreadable. And every time you don't react, they lose a little more control. Their frustration becomes visible, your peace becomes louder. You didn't stay quiet because you were weak. You stayed quiet because you understood the consequences of letting your real self speak. Your silence wasn't surrender, it was restraint, a level of self-control they mistook for softness. They thought your calm was fear, your patience was hesitation, your quiet was uncertainty. But deep inside, you were holding back something far more dangerous than any argument they could have thrown at you. They kept testing you because they believed silence meant they were winning. They didn't know you were measuring every word, weighing every reaction, deciding whether the situation deserved the version of you they wouldn't survive. You weren't ignoring their disrespect, you were analyzing it, understanding it, letting it expose them without needing to lift a single finger. That's the thing about monsters. The real ones don't roar immediately, they wait, they watch, they calculate. And you've always been the type who could destroy someone without raising your voice. But you didn't, because you knew the moment you unleashed what you were truly capable of, the entire dynamic would shift into something they couldn't handle. People forget that the strongest ones don't fight for every insult thrown at them. They choose their battles because they know their impact is permanent. They understood nothing about you when they assumed your silence was weakness. If anything, your quiet was the biggest warning they never recognized. You were protecting them from a version of yourself they've never met, the one that doesn't forgive, doesn't explain, doesn't go back and forth. The version that burns bridges without looking back. That doesn't give second chances. That cuts deep with truth sharper than any blade. You didn't unleash that version, not because you couldn't, but because they weren't worth the fallout. But disrespect accumulates. It piles up, layer after layer, until even the calmest soul turns cold. You absorbed more than they realized, not because you didn't feel it, but because you refused to give them the satisfaction of watching you break. You let them think they had power while secretly stripping them of every bit of it. A controlled monster is still a monster, and that scared you more than it scared them. Because you knew the moment you snapped there would be no sorry, no I didn't mean it, no coming back. They had no idea how close they were to being cut out of your life permanently. They played with fire, thinking it was warm, but they didn't understand you are capable of turning into the wildfire that leaves nothing standing. Your silence was your shield. It kept you in control and kept them unaware. They had no idea what you were holding back. They thought your calmness was ignorance, but it was discipline. If you had responded with the fire they provoked, the story would have ended far earlier and far uglier. There is power in not reacting. A power they underestimated, because your silence forced them to reveal who they were. They showed their insecurities, their entitlement, their lack of character, all without you having to expose a thing. You watched them dig their own grave with words they thought would bury you. Every time you stayed quiet, it wasn't because their disrespect didn't sting, it was because you chose to stay aligned with your own values. You knew you were too evolved to argue with people who thrive on chaos. You refused to step into the mud with them because you knew they were too comfortable living in it. You learned that silence can be the sharpest response. It can cut deeper than yelling ever could. It makes them question themselves, question their moves, question why you refused to give them the reaction they wanted. And eventually, your lack of response became the loudest message of all. Your silence didn't protect them from your anger, it protected them from your indifference. Because once you reached the point of not caring, the monster inside you didn't need to roar. It just needed to walk away, leaving them with the weight of their own behavior. People think they want honesty, but they're rarely ready for the raw truth you keep caged inside. You could have torn their ego apart with a single sentence. You could have exposed every flaw they try to hide. But you chose peace, not because they deserved it, but because you deserved better than wasting your energy. You weren't trying to save them from the monster, you were saving yourself from wasting time, dignity, and self-respect on someone who believed disrespecting you was entertainment. Staying silent allowed you to stay aligned with who you are, not who they tried to turn you into. Yet still, there came a moment when you realized silence wasn't enough. When you understood that controlling the monster wasn't the real challenge was choosing when to set yourself free from anyone who made you feel you needed to cage it. When you finally withdrew, it wasn't dramatic, it wasn't announced, it wasn't loud. You simply detached. And that detachment hit harder than any reaction ever would. Because people fear silence when they know they earned the storm that never came. They replay your quiet now, trying to decode it. They wonder why you didn't fight, why you didn't argue, why you didn't defend yourself. What they don't realize is that your silence was the closure. It was the end. It was the final straw wrapped in calmness. You outgrew the need to prove your worth. You outgrew the desire to explain yourself. You outgrew the urge to match disrespect with anger. Instead, you let your absence deliver the blow your words never needed to. And that's what terrified them in the end. Not the monster you kept inside, but the realization that they weren't even significant enough to awaken it. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was judgment, sentence, and consequence all wrapped into one. Now they sit with the emptiness they created, realizing that you didn't hold back because you were scared, you held back because they were insignificant to the version of you that knows its own power. They expected to break you. Instead, they revealed themselves. And the monster inside you? It didn't need to attack. It just needed to walk away. They never understood that silence is a language, one far more dangerous than anger. When you finally stopped reacting, they didn't feel relief. They felt fear. Because a quiet person isn't a defeated person. A quiet person is someone who has already made a decision. Your silence told them everything they needed to know. You were done entertaining what drained you. Done absorbing disrespect. Done pretending you didn't see their true colors. The shift in you was subtle but lethal. You didn't announce your boundaries, you enforced them. You didn't explain your exit, you executed it. You didn't announce your pain, you healed privately. And in that silence, they realized you were never the fragile soul they thought you were. You were a storm disguised as a breeze, a threat disguised as peace. They look back now and wonder when things changed. But the truth is, things changed the moment you realized disrespect didn't deserve a reaction. You realized your energy was too powerful to waste on anyone who couldn't value it. You realized you could end chapters without confrontation, without noise, without theatrics. Just silence and doors that would never open again. Silence made them see what they refused to acknowledge. That you weren't emotionally dependent on them, you weren't desperate for validation, and you weren't trapped in their chaos. You were watching them expose themselves piece by piece. You were learning their patterns, their intentions, their manipulations, and preparing to walk away long before they noticed the distance growing. When the disrespect kept coming, you didn't break, you didn't crumble, you evolved. You grew colder, wiser, sharper. You turned every wound into a warning, every disappointment into detachment. Your silence wasn't avoidance, it was transformation. It was the moment you shifted from trying to be understood to refusing to be disrespected. They expected a meltdown when you finally stood up for yourself. Instead, you gave them indifference, a weapon more brutal than any argument. Indifference freezes what anger burns. It leaves people confused, restless, haunted. They didn't expect you to reach that level of emotional clarity where you could shut a door and never look back. Your silence forced them to confront themselves, something they never wanted to do. Because once you stopped reacting, they could no longer blame you, distract themselves with drama, or control the narrative. They had to sit with their own actions, their own lies, their own decay. And that silence echoed louder than any truth you could have spoken. You created distance they never imagined you were capable of. They didn't know the silent version of you, the version that stopped explaining and started erasing. When you detach deeply. And once you're gone, you don't leave breadcrumbs, hints, or openings. Just the memory of someone they should have treated better. The monster inside you wasn't rage, it was discipline. The ability to stand still when provoked. The strength to stay silent when disrespected. The wisdom to know that your reaction could destroy someone, and the maturity to choose peace instead. They mistook that restraint for softness because they had never seen true strength before. They really thought they could outsmart you. That was their first mistake. They approached you with strategy, manipulation, little games designed to confuse and control, never realizing you were already 10 moves ahead, watching their every pattern repeat like a broken record. They confused your patience with ignorance and your silence with blindness. They didn't know they were challenging the creator of the game itself. They came to the board with excitement, believing they were finally about to win. But you had already studied them long before they made their first move. Their habits, their impulses, their ego-driven mistakes, all predictable, all transparent. They thought they were stepping into a battle of equals. You knew from the beginning it was a massacre waiting to happen. They assumed you were naive, someone who played emotionally. They didn't see the architect behind your eyes, the one who designs outcomes, not reacts to them. So while they celebrated every small advantage they thought they gained, you were quietly rearranging the entire board beneath their feet. They brought chaos, thinking chaos could shake you. But you've lived through storms they couldn't survive. You've danced with darker minds, learned from sharper knives. Their attempts at confusion only amused you. They didn't understand that what scares them has always empowered you. They played dirty using lies, rumors, manipulation. They smiled while stabbing, believing you'd crumble. Instead, you watched, studying how low they could go. It wasn't a shock. It was confirmation. They were amateurs pretending to be tacticians. They thought you were reacting emotionally. You weren't. You were calculating. Every silence was a strategy. Every distance was a counterattack. Every time you didn't respond, you were letting them dig their own grave, brick by manipulative brick. They believed they were teaching you a lesson. But in reality, all they did was expose their weaknesses, arrogance, insecurity, desperation for control. And once you identify someone's weaknesses, they stop being a threat. They assumed you would lose yourself in the chaos they created. Instead, you found clarity. Their games sharpened you. Their lies strengthened you. Their betrayal revealed how small they were standing next to the mind they underestimated. They thought you would eventually break and attempt to prove your worth to them, but you never played to impress them. You played to understand them. And once you understood them completely, the game became boring. They kept making moves with confidence, unaware they were walking straight into the trap you set with complete calmness. While they were celebrating one pawn, you were positioning your checkmate. They tried to outsmart you by switching strategies, love bombing, then hostility, then victimhood. Ironically, every version of them was equally predictable. They were just actors cycling through roles with the same weak script. They interpreted your silence as defeat, but you were merely observing. Silence is golden to fools because they mistake it for weakness. But to a strategist, silence is where the winning moves are crafted. The moment they thought they had you figured out was the moment you stopped playing. And that's when panic began, because the game wasn't fun anymore when you stopped participating. They needed your reactions like oxygen. Without them, they suffocated in irrelevance. They thought removing themselves from your life would hurt you. They didn't realize you had already mentally walked away long before the physical distance happened. They exited a game that you had finished months ago. Every attempt they made to one-up you only revealed how deeply they cared about the outcome. You didn't. That alone put you miles ahead. A player obsessed with winning always loses to someone who has nothing left to lose. They tried to provoke you into moves they could predict, but you remained unreadable, calm, ice-cold, unreadable. That's what terrified them. They were used to your warmth, not this quiet brilliance that burned without flame. They thought they could trick you into making emotional decisions, but you learned long ago that emotions are the enemy of strategy. You stopped loving them the moment they became a liability to your peace. Every lie they whispered was a move on the board, and every truth you already knew was another piece you silently positioned. While they were speaking loudly, you were thinking louder. They came into your life believing they were the hunter, but they didn't know they were stepping into the lion's den disguised as a chess match. And lions don't play, they end. The more they tried to control the narrative, the more control they lost. You didn't fight them, you let them expose themselves, and a self-sabotaging opponent is the easiest kind to defeat. They thought betrayal would be your breaking point. Instead, it was your confirmation. Their disloyalty was the last piece you needed to finalize your checkmate, clean, calculated, inevitable. They expected tears, confrontation, drama, but your silence, your smirk, your calm departure, that was the real punishment. They didn't expect a villain to walk away without a monologue. They never realized they were just pawns in a game you mastered long before they entered your life. Pawns pretending to be kings. How tragic, how predictable, how beautifully pathetic. And when you finally delivered the checkmate, not with noise but with absence, it hit them harder than any revenge ever could. They didn't lose the game. They lost access to the mind that could have elevated them. In the end, the truth burns. They tried to play chess with someone who invented the board, and now they're stuck replaying every wrong move in their head, while you've already started a new game they'll never be invited to. They thought they had every version of you figured out, as if you were some simple pattern they could decode in a few reckless moves. But the truth was always colder, always deeper. You weren't just playing the game, you were the one who crafted its foundation. They were so busy studying your footsteps that they never realized you built the ground they were standing on. Their arrogance made them blind, and your silence made you untouchable. Every time they believed they were ahead, you were already miles beyond them. They mistook your calm for ignorance, your patience for weakness. They thought they were orchestrating chaos, while you quietly shaped entire outcomes from the shadows. They didn't realize you moved like inevitability, slow, deliberate, unstoppable. By the time they caught up, the game was already over. You watched them celebrate their little victories, the ones you handed them so they'd wander deeper into the maze you designed. Their confidence inflated, their guard lowered, and they walked willingly into traps you didn't even need to set anymore. It wasn't manipulation, it was architecture. They lived inside a world you engineered without them ever noticing the walls closing in. Their strategies were loud, frantic, desperate. Yours existed in silence, carved from long nights of rebuilding yourself from ashes they never saw. They tried to challenge someone who understands not just the game but the psychology behind every piece on the board. They moved impulsively. You moved with purpose, and purpose always triumphs over ego. What made it worse for them was how effortlessly you dismantled their plans. Not with rage, not with theatrics, just precision. They swung wildly, trying to dominate a battlefield that didn't belong to them. You didn't even push back. You simply removed your presence, and they began to collapse under the weight of their own miscalculations. Nothing is more devastating than realizing you were never a threat to the one you tried to betray. They kept trying to define you, label you, explain you as if they had the vocabulary to understand someone who doesn't play by human limits. You weren't reacting, you were designing. You weren't scheming, you were shaping. They looked at you like an opponent. You looked at them like variables in an equation you solved before the first move was made. And when they attempted to corner you, you let them. You watched them tighten their own noose, thinking they were tightening yours. Letting them believe they had the advantage was part of the lesson, because nothing humbles a pretender faster than falling into a victory they never truly won. They never realized that every win they celebrated was a door leading them exactly where you wanted them. One by one, their assumptions collapsed. They realized too late that you weren't reacting to their moves, you were predicting them. Their choices were predictable, repetitive, rehearsed. You, on the other hand, moved like a force of nature, calculated and cold. You didn't just stay 10 steps ahead. You built the steps. Their downfall began the moment they believed you were manageable. That belief cracked the moment they watched their plans crumble from the inside. They learned the hard way that you cannot outsmart the architect. You can only expose your own weaknesses in the attempt, and every weakness they tried to hide became a weapon in your hands. Your silence became the tension they couldn't handle. Your distance became the mirror they couldn't look into. You didn't strike back, you didn't need to. You simply stopped participating in the game, and without you, their entire sense of power evaporated. They needed your presence to feel strong. You needed nothing from them. They want to start over now, not because they finally understand the damage, but because they finally understand the loss. Regret didn't arrive when they were cruel. It arrived when access was revoked. They speak the language of change with mouths that spent years fluent in excuses. They suddenly believe in healing now that the consequences have names and faces and irreversible distance. They talk about the past like it was a misunderstanding instead of a pattern, like years of behavior were an accident instead of a choice they made repeatedly without apology. They want forgiveness without a trial, reunion without repair, a clean slate without acknowledging the blood that stained the last one. But you don't argue anymore. You don't explain. You don't negotiate. You don't even flinch. They try to reintroduce themselves like strangers at a door they once owned. They knock gently now, soft voices, softer promises. But the house behind that door no longer belongs to the person they left behind. They want to restart because the ending didn't flatter them, because the silence didn't give them a heroic role, because the story moved forward without offering them redemption. They say, "Let's talk." But you already had that conversation privately, internally, permanently. They believe distance is temporary because it always used to be. They're waiting for the cycle to reset. They don't realize the cycle was burned down, not paused. They want to rewind to the version of you that still tried, the one who explained feelings, the one who waited, the one who hoped. That person doesn't exist anymore. They mistake your calm for openness, your silence for space, your composure for softness. They still don't understand that restraint is not permission. They ask for one more chance, as if chances were infinite currencies instead of rare investments that only exist while trust still has oxygen. You are not angry enough for them to feel important. You are not emotional enough for them to feel powerful. You are not reactive enough for them to feel relevant, and that destroys them quietly. They want a reset because they cannot survive as the villain in a story they no longer control. They need your participation to rewrite the ending in their favor. But you have already exited the narrative. They offer apologies shaped like bargains, regret shaped like negotiation, accountability shaped like "but you also." You don't argue with arithmetic anymore. You already calculated the total. They promise they've changed. But change that arrives only after loss is not evolution, it's panic. They want to start over because their present is empty without the appeal of your absence. They don't miss who you are now. They miss who you were when you still tolerated them. They want to return to comfort without revisiting the cost. But you don't revisit graves. They talk about fate, about timing, about destiny pulling things back together. They avoid the one word that would actually matter: responsibility. You don't feel tempted. You don't feel curious. You don't feel nostalgic enough to betray your peace. They wait for cracks in your detachment like gamblers watching for tells at a table where the game ended hours ago. They say, people deserve second chances. You quietly agree, just not from you. They want the version of you that used to doubt their own worth. They want the self that mistook longing for love and endurance for loyalty. They cannot comprehend the person you became, the one who learned that walking away is sometimes the purest form of self-respect. They still think emotional access is permanent property. They never learned it was always a lease. They want us again. You've already redefined what me means. They hope time softened you. It sharpened you. They believe you're pretending to be strong. They don't realize strength was built in the silence they left behind. They imagine your indifference is temporary. They don't know indifference is what remains when hope finally dies peacefully. They want to start over because they believe the story owes them another attempt. But stories don't owe anyone anything. They confuse your lack of hatred for forgiveness. They confuse your peace for weakness. They still don't understand that you no longer hate them because they no longer exist in the emotional geography of your life. They want access again. You removed the location. They want connection again. You changed the language. They want to return. You changed the locks without announcing it. They say one more chance, but you are already living inside the chance you gave yourself. They want to start over. You don't give a sheet. Not out of bitterness, not out of cruelty, but because the version of you that would have cared finally learned how to choose peace without apology. And that is the ending they will never rewrite. They will always wonder what the exact moment was when the door closed for good. They'll replay conversations, scan old messages, revisit arguments like forensic analysts studying emotional crime scenes. What they will never find is a dramatic timestamp, because the ending wasn't a moment. It was a slow accumulation of everything they ignored. They thought distance would scare you back. They thought silence would starve you into returning. They underestimated what happens when someone finally learns how to be alone without feeling abandoned. They still tell the story as if it's unfinished, as if there's a missing chapter waiting to be written. They can't accept that some stories don't pause, they conclude. They wait for you to miss what broke you. They don't understand that nostalgia dies quietly when peace arrives fully. They think your refusal to restart is stubbornness. They don't see it for what it really is, clarity. They confuse your lack of response for internal conflict. They imagine you pacing, debating, struggling. They don't realize the war ended a long time ago and the battlefield is now empty. They want you to doubt your decision. But doubt doesn't survive where self-respect has finally taken root. They once had unlimited access to your emotional world. Now they can't even locate the entrance. That kind of loss disorients people. They wonder how someone who once gave so much can now give nothing. They never ask themselves what it cost you to give in the first place. They still search for guilt inside you, hoping it will weaken your resolve. What they don't understand is that guilt only thrives where obligation still exists. They want your attention because attention validates their relevance. Your indifference confirms what they fear most, that they no longer matter in the shape of your life. They remember the version of you that waited. They don't know how to speak to the version of you that has already moved on. They wish they had changed sooner. They just never thought they'd run out of time. They want comfort from the very person they made unsafe. They want forgiveness from the one they taught how to leave. They look at your calm and call it cold. They don't understand that cold is what warmth turns into after it's been burned too many times. They still believe love should be unconditional. They never learned that endurance has limits, and those limits are called boundaries. They want the past back because their present doesn't know how to hold them. They want your familiar patience to soften the reality they now have to face alone. They wanted another cycle, another reset, another chance to do just enough to keep you without ever fully changing. What they got instead was the end of the pattern itself. And this is the final truth they will have to carry without your help. You did not leave because you stopped caring. You left because caring had started to destroy you. They wanted to start over. You chose to move forward. They thought the story still belonged to both of you. It never did. It belongs to the one who had the courage to walk away and never look back. And that is the real ending.